From the dawn of time to this very day, life would be almost impossible without compromising. Yet, not everything is to compromise. And what is that? The landscape of the nations in the ancient Near Eastern world that surrounded Samaria, the capital of northern Israel, influenced their life, their custom, and religious practices. But by the time of Ahab and his son Isaiah in the 9th century BCE, the state of Judah was in the south, and the Moabites, Ammonites, Philistines, Phoenician cities, and Aram surrounded the country. Also, it is important to mention that on the east side was Gilead already conquered, and on the north, Naphtali also conquered. That tells us that they were already losing land, one of the signs of the covenant. Also, we have to remember that Israel sit in the two main channel roads that connected the Palestinian world of the 19th century. Those channels were used for economical transitions and connection between the countries around the area. The desert on the other side was the main obstacle to other roads. Hence, the nations around wanted to have some kind of control dominion of the area, but by the time of Isaiah, the nation had been already divided into two kingdoms, two different kingdoms, and the Amorite Empire was in decline. This is significant because that was the promised land where they would make God known to the nations through the usage of those channels, and they were losing it. The land was one important aspect of the people of God, or for the people of God, because it had covenantal attachments. Christopher Wright says, on the one side, the land was theirs through the promise and covenantal gift of Yahweh, and on the other hand, it was still Yahweh's land, and he had a moral rights over how it was to be used. He continues saying, the land functions as a kind of covenantal thermometer measuring Israel's relationship with God at any given time. Thus, the land at the economical angle function as a gauge for the things or how the things are going on the other two levels, Israel's life as a society and their relationship to God. The land itself is the place for blessings and cursing, as Deuteronomy tells us. God's people's response to the covenant was the main concern here. Ultimately, losing the land means that they were being unfaithful to the covenant, beginning with the king. The king had the responsibility to protect and keep the covenant and extend it to its domain. He had to make a copy of Torah for himself and read it. King Ahab fell on this regard. His marriage was the ultimate plague to his rule and to the covenant of God. Ahab strengthened already strong ties with the Phoenician when he married Jezebel, the daughter of the king of Sidon. In the text, these diplomatic marriages do have a dark side, where they are cited as prime causes for the adoration or adoption of idol worship and the suppression of Yahweh's prophets. Even though that was a good political move to marry Jezebel, it infringed the covenant with their God. You see, Jezebel is a Phoenician princess. She was also a priestess of the Phoenician god Baal. That is of no surprise that Israel fell into apostasy. Jezebel brought Baal worship into the country and it consumed, corrupt the entire nation, the northern kingdom. That was the recipe to the downfall of the empire. Opposition to God and his messenger was the struggle during the dynasty in the time of Ahab. That was the environment that Isaiah grew up, and Ahab failed to fulfill his role as the Messiah, and so his son. They made concessions on the covenant and on their faith. This is not that different nowadays. We forget the covenant, our relationship with God, for the advantages that we can have in this life. So, this is a reminder to everybody to be faithful to the principles of our faith and the covenants with God. Empires fell due to their own corruption, and so today's empire fell as well for the same reason. Our safeguard is only on God and His covenant with us. Hence, good is the advice. Therefore, everyone who thinks that he stands, take heed, lest he falls. Hi, I hope this episode has been informing and transforming. Share it, subscribe, like, or comment. And if you want to donate either with your talent, time, or blessings, please contact us at the address on the screen. Our prayers are with you. See you on next episode.